The Ink and Paint Club podcast is intended for mature audiences. These guys can't go about like 3 seconds without saying a swear, so, listener discretion is advised. Kyle, would you wear yourself on a shirt?
It's a little shitty, but I'll do it.
Well, I mean, not like a real picture of you. It's like the cartoon version.
No, we need to get like an actual photo of Kyle. It should be that one, his little koi picture from his Facebook profile. Put that on a shirt. Or no, better yet, we'll put the picture of you that you imposed in the memento photo.
I was just about to say. Yeah, I was about to say if we're putting that photo of Kyle on a shirt, it's going to be the one of him where it says "Don't believe his lies."
It's time for Animaniacs.
You're listening to the Ink and Paint Club podcast, your weekly home for animation reviews and discussions.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Ink and Paint Club podcast. My name is JD. I am joined here by my two good friends, Kyle and Matt.
Hello.
Hello. And we are here to talk about another revival from years past. Talking about the new Animaniacs for 2020, exclusively on Hulu, which the show makes abundantly clear that you know that.
Yeah, it was funny that they put out like a bunch of the promotional material like ahead of the show's release, and I kind of assumed that it was just promotional material, and then like it all ended up in the show proper. So a lot of that first episode you see just from like the initial advertising, like that whole bit, the whole Jurassic Park spoof bit, that was what they lead with.
Right.
And then, the whole bit with the Yakko talking about like the state of revivals or something, and like it has a Hulu logo everywhere and all that. That's like the closer for the first episode, I think.
Right. Yeah. So
how familiar are you guys with the original Animaniacs?
Sorry. Go ahead, Kyle.
I had the DVDs somewhat.
Oh, okay. So you're a fairly regular viewer, like when you were a kid, like as it was airing.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I was.
And then I'm assuming I'm probably assuming it's the same for you as well, JD. I think we were all like,
So I grew up watching Animaniacs a lot. It was one of those shows that my dad also enjoyed watching. So we'd watch it like on Saturday mornings together. He was really into it too. I remember I had an Animaniacs pillow growing up.
Right.
And I haven't really gone back and watched the old show in quite some time. I know over the summer when the advertising for the new show was always starting to ramp up, I did like watch like the first handful of episodes of the old show. It's definitely got that like we're still sussing this out kind of vibes, and I'm sure if I kept watching, it would get more into the Animaniacs that I'm more familiar with.
Right.
Because I mean, the original Animaniacs came out in '93. I was like 2 years old when it came out.
Right. Yeah.
So, and by the time it ended in '98, I mean, I was like just a few years into being like, cognizant of what I was doing in the world. So, right. But yeah, it was definitely a big part of my childhood. I'm just watching it all the time. But not having watched the old show in a while, it makes watching this new version a little difficult because it's like, I'm going to be upfront about this. I don't think this reboot is bad. It doesn't, but it definitely does have a lot of problems. And I don't. So what, Kyle?
Nothing. Go on.
Jeez. I was just saying it definitely has its problems, and I don't know if some of those problems are the old show but comparing it to the feelings I have about the old show, because I don't know if like the old show really holds up to what I remember. So
Back in 2014, 2015, Netflix put it on Animaniacs, and that was somewhat popular. And I remember watching a few episodes, and I went, "Wow, this fucking aged like milk." And that's pretty much how I feel about it.
Although I think going up on Netflix, I think was a big factor responsible for why it got the revival in the first place. Though I think a lot of people were revisiting it and people were watching it for the first time and all that. And I think the popularity did lead to Warner Brothers pursuing options to see what they could do as far as a revival went.
Maybe.
yeah, I'm not too sure about like the ins and out of like why it was brought back, like what exactly it was, but I know recently, and I say recently, but in the last couple of years, that all of those Spielberg cartoons, except for Freakazoid for some reason, all got put up on Hulu. So you can watch the old Animaniacs, you can watch Pinky and the Brain, you watch Tiny Toons. I think even Pinky
Tiny
Elmira
Toon.
in the Brain is up there.
Yeah, and then Tiny Toons, that's another one that's getting rebooted as well at HBO Max.
Yeah, which that's another thing about this reboot is that I think it's just because of the timing of it being greenlit, is that had this been put into production like a year or two later, I have no doubt that this would have been an HBO Max show, not a Hulu show.
Yeah, definitely. Especially because now there seems to be talks about Hulu getting rolled up into Disney Plus. So I feel like after a certain amount of time, because it's Warner Brothers and stuff, it'll end up going to HBO Max. But then that'll make kind of some of the jokes about like the Hulu specific jokes, like in the first episode, kind of.
Honestly, that's not actually such a hurdle, because I know there's one joke that I remember, because the old Animaniacs was on Fox Kids for a couple years, but then when WB started up Kids WB, their own block, it got moved over there in the mid 90s. But there is a joke, because in the old show they had this reoccurring segment, the Wheel of Morality.
Yeah.
I just remember one joke, and Dot and Wacko are like, "We hate the Wheel of Morality." Who's like, "Dude, what's this anyway?" And Yakko's like, "The execs of the Fox Kids network." And then they're like, "We love the Wheel of Morality."
Right.
So obviously them switching networks isn't gonna like I don't feel it's gonna really affect those kind of specific like network jokes.
Yeah, no,
just because it's happened before.
Yeah. Just so I can cycle back, because I didn't get to mention, but yeah, like you guys, I grew up on Animaniacs as well, so it's definitely I would say, just like you said, JD, definitely a big part of like a childhood viewing, but a lot of it was definitely after it had already aired, so it was mostly like reruns I caught it on and stuff. But I do distinctly remember growing up, the one piece of merchandise that I had was I had this, it's a Christmas CD. It's like a Christmas CD, and it's half and half. It's Animaniacs and Looney Tunes, and they're all just like, it's like a musical album, and so like half of it's like a retelling of A Christmas Carol, but with the Animaniacs and Dr. Scratch and Sniff, and then the other half is just like sort of assorted Christmas songs, but with like the Looney Tunes characters, like fucking Foghorn Leghorn and Bugs Bunny and Daffy and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember listening to that a lot as a kid, so I'm very familiar with the. Oh, that's something we should definitely mention too. The actual, like, because the main segments for this reboot are specifically just Animaniacs and Pinky and the Brain, but they were able to bring back the original voice actors, so that was definitely something. I feel like, as far as, because I've heard what the original performances sound like as like a comparison point, and they still sound really good. There's definitely, like, you could definitely tell the ravages of time have changed their voices in a way, just because who hasn't. But Yeah, so that's for Animaniacs. But as far as Pinky and the Brain, like I think Rob Paulson's Pinky held up a little bit better than his Yakko, and then of course Maurice LaMarche has pretty much sounded the same his whole like career. So he still sounded pretty good as a Brain.
Yeah, and Frank Welker is back too.
Oh, yeah, Ralph.
Yeah, he's Ralph. He voices a couple other characters, but obviously Frank Welker sounded the same for fucking 60 years.
Yeah, I mean he's the original voice actor for Fred, and he's still voicing Fred on Scooby Doo.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's insane to me.
Right. So now that we have this reboot of this like acclaimed, beloved classic show,
let's throw like a fuckload of politics into it.
So that's the thing. That's one of the things. I shouldn't say it's the only clarifier. There was plenty of politics stuff in old Animaniacs. I watched compilations of them like ripping on the Clinton administration and just like politics of the day. So it's not like politics was something that they weren't tackling in the old show. Yeah. I do think. Okay, so look, I'm all for like inclusion and rights for everybody, and I like all that.
They demonstrate that in the new version of the intro.
So okay, all of the new, what I, for lack of a better word, will say PC culture, terminology and what have you. I'm all for it in normal life, but I feel like this show like hits it way too much on the head. Like it is thrown in your face constantly. And it's just like, I agree with what you're saying, just not the way you're saying it. I guess the best way I can put it.
Yeah, I know, because before I even got a chance to watch the first episode, you guys were already pretty much done with your watch throughs, and yeah, you guys are basically just bringing up the politics stuff of it like all the time, and I was thinking like, oh, surely it's not that loaded. And I was like, oh wow, no, it's actually it's pretty loaded.
Oh no, it's
and not necessarily with like stuff related to our current administration. I mean, there of course is that stuff, but I think most of it's just skits that are based around politics in general. I think there's really a lot more stuff that's like specifically bashing Russia than it is about like.
Okay, let's talk about the Russia skit for a second. Look,
is it the animaney yets?
Yeah, there's a segment in here where the Warners find out that there is a Russian knockoff of their show being filmed over in Russia. And so they go over to Russia to put a stop to it. Okay. On the surface, that's a funny idea. The way it's presented is like the most backward, like early 80s depiction of Russia. Like, I get that maybe America isn't on the friendliest terms with Russia at the moment, and I'm not going to get into all the ins and outs of that. But like, even I felt a little offended on behalf of the Russians for how they were portrayed.
So if you change Russia to Saudi Arabia and have them have a knockoff show in Saudi Arabia, would that come off as a little racist to have them in a shithole country having this knockoff show?
I think if it was presented in the same way that the Russians were, I think it would still be a little offensive.
Yeah,
I mean, it's not so much. It's not so much because it's Russia. It's just the stereotypical way they're presenting Russia is what's offensive.
Yeah, but they portrayed Russia as this gigantic shithole country, which I don't know if it's really all that accurate, but
well, they're like. I don't know too much about, Russian society these days, but I feel like they're a pretty modern country, but like they were very much depicting like Cold War era Russia, like
stagecoaches pulled by bears and stuff like that.
Right. It was just every like played out Russian stereotype you could think of just put into one skit.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's that's just one of those things that was very typical of the comedy shows from the era where Animaniacs originates. Is just like, yeah,
Well,
that was kind of like you
and
know,
that's weird. Is it's walking this line of like, and they even kind of say it like when the show first starts off, and like the Warners are getting back to the lot, and they're like, okay, we got to really think about our first lines, and they're even kind of saying like, okay, well, we got to update this show, but we don't want to alienate like the parents that grew up on Animaniacs. So they're like trying to walk this line of being like the classic show, but also interjecting modern sensibility into it. And like, I don't think it succeeds on like every level for that the way I think it thinks it is.
But
right.
after watching this show, though, who's the target demographic? Because it seems like the target demographic is the parents that watch the show when they were
Oh
kids.
no,
It doesn't come off as a kid's cartoon that much.
Yeah, no,
No,
for sure.
I think there's enough like so when I grew up watching Animaniacs, I definitely did not get any of the adult humor that was in that show. Because I was 6 years old, I didn't understand it, and then my dad thought it was hilarious because obviously he's an adult.
I mean,
Which is
like
why he liked it.
back in that time, they were like, "Hey, it's Michael Gorbachev," and then they would have Gorbachev on, and it's like, yeah, people don't know who the fuck that is anymore, or like, I don't know, just a bunch of politicians at the time that didn't fucking matter.
Right.
So the original series fucking aged like milk, and doing the same thing in this is making it age like milk. Just like you said, the Hulu shit, that's gonna make it age like milk once it gets bought by a different company.
I feel like I don't know. I feel like
a Quibi thing.
I feel like they really should have thrown a. Well, I guess they wouldn't have known because they wrote all this shit in 2018. That's the other thing too. You have to keep in mind that this is all written, and they make a joke about that too. They're just like, yeah, this is all being written in 2018, so you have to predict the current.
I hate that fucking excuse though, because it's just like The Simpsons. You're gonna have The Simpsons and do a Halloween spin-off or whatever, your little Halloween show. Then you're gonna reference movies that came out like 5 years ago and then go, oh, look, guys, we're being modern. And it's like, no, it's not. Even if you wrote it at that time, it's still not modern.
Well, no. So the point that I was going to make was for the point of the original show not aging very well. I think in this current age where everything you're basically made aware of everything that's going on in the world at once for all hours of the day, and so I think a lot more people are more knowledgeable about like that type of shit now than they ever have been. So I feel like it'll definitely remain in the public consciousness like longer than shit did back then. So I don't know. I think on that particular point, like I'm not saying that it won't age badly. I'm just saying that it'll probably take a little bit longer for it to. If you know what I mean?
Yeah, I feel like they kind of weren't like time specific about a lot of the references this time around. It was themes and stuff that are relevant to this era, but nothing that was like, okay, this is gonna tie this down to 2018. Other than like say, is Trump still gonna be the president by the time this comes out? That's really the only like joke I saw that was like really tying it to whenever it was actually made.
Right.
But there's stuff like there's a veiled gun control skit. There's one that's dealing with the NSA, which is still continues to be a problem. One of my least favorite skits is they deal with a literal manspreading.
Yeah, that's where I just stopped watching the show.
Oh, really?
That's all it did for me. Mansplaining. I was like, yeah, I'm done with this. It's like Tumblr shit culture. I ain't into that.
Well, I mean, at least that in that particular instance, it was very. They're playing with the fucking ridiculousness of it, and there wasn't like that type of stuff wasn't necessarily prevalent throughout the entire season. Like, I feel like I don't know. I feel like as far as like, and I know like a lot of people have voiced the same sort of opinion too, but I feel like given all the faults that the reboot has, I still feel like the positives greatly outweigh it.
So I feel like again the three of us are kind of falling into different camps. Where Kyle, is it safe to assume that like on the whole you didn't enjoy this?
No, not really.
Okay. And Matt, you seem to be pretty positive about it, whereas
I
I'm
would say about like I would give this season in general probably like an 8 out of 10 or like a 9 out of 10. Like there's definitely problems that are there, and that just is mostly due to like how certain jokes land and how the content of some of those like skits and stuff. But I feel like for the most part, I mean, like I was definitely I watched this with a friend and we were laughing at like a lot of different bits.
So I'm kind of in the camp of like half and half. I do think there's a lot of good stuff in here, and there is some good animation.
Okay, so that's definitely like I think we already mentioned like in a recent, or I think we're probably mentioned in multiple episodes this year. But I mean, Warner Brothers output like this year alone has been like incredible. Like just the amount of quality that they throw. Just I mean, obviously, not in the overall package, but if we're talking just straight up animation, like they've been like killing it. Like between their features and their television division and stuff, like they've been really like picking it up like in all different aspects of that, as far as the stuff meant for families and the stuff meant for adults. Like they've been doing a really good job kind of touching on all bases, and kind of capping off the year with like this reboot. I feel like they're definitely, it'll be interesting to see what else they're going to be doing in the new year.
Yeah. So like I was saying about, so like this show is like, I'll say well animated, especially
But
for
is it?
television animation these days. I will say for the most part, it definitely does not have the life that the old show did. Like I went back and watched some clips of the old show, and it's just, I don't know if it's just that old cell animation or what. But this new like digital animation that they're using for this show, it just doesn't have the same kind of life to it.
It definitely looks different, yeah, but I still feel like it's very well done.
I mean, like I said,
If you're comparing it to the original, like on that certain aspect, then yeah, I would say that the original still
well,
looks.
I even want to go so far as and I noticed way more in the Pinky and the Brain segments, where there was some puppet animation being used, which
Right,
is one of
well,
the
I
easiest
think
things to do. But
yeah, because that's just one of those things where it's like to work smarter, not harder. And I feel like even though they use puppet animation in spots, it's like they're still like,
well,
as far as unique frames go, it's still predominantly the shows like.
right, but I'm still like, when I think Animaniacs, I think of like really well done, like really well crafted traditional animation. Um, so what I'm seeing, and I'm sure they cut corners in the old show, but when I'm seeing this kind of stiff puppet animation, even if it's for like a few bits of animation, it like stands out to me. I don't know why exactly. Like anytime I saw that something was like very obviously puppeted, it like took me out of it for a minute.
I think it stands out to you because you predominantly watch cartoons for a podcast that talks primarily about cartoons.
Yeah.
We watch a lot of cartoons. Yeah, not to
Yeah.
say like I didn't notice. I'm sure Kyle noticed it too, but it's like, it's just one of those things. If you prop it up against other shows that are being made now that are, it still looks a lot better than like those, even like just in the quality that's
Well,
thrown behind it.
I've known had that problem in other shows too, where they try to cut corners with puppet animation every now and then, and it bothers me there. It's not just Animaniacs that does it. It bothers me every time I see it. Unless your show is like like exclusively puppet animation, it's gonna throw me off every time I see it.
Right, because I
But
mean, it's technically just like a switch and how it's the style of the animation. Yeah, it's definitely a
yeah,
little bit jarring, but I feel like most people definitely don't even pick up on that. Like the casual audiences don't even notice.
yeah. But like I was saying, I'm kind of half and half on this show right now. I definitely feel like there are a handful of skits that like work really well and I think are really funny. But then there's
So
like,
I do want to ask though. I mean, in your guys watch it, did you have any particular like skit that you did particularly enjoy?
Kyle, I'll let you field that one first.
Oh boy. Yeah, I mean, the whole manspreading one, I definitely didn't watch it, so I don't know if I got opinion on that, whether or not liked it or not.
Well,
Well, no,
of
well,
what
no,
you
I'm
did,
Tell you straight up,
yeah, of the show that you got to see, was there anything that you actually like enjoyed?
that I enjoyed, fuck, I don't even remember, man. To be honest, not a lot of this stood out to me because I watched it a week or two ago, and I can't tell you, oh yeah, I remember this. I remember the fucking reboot song, but that's what I mean. As a whole series, it didn't stand out to me. And I know
Sure.
the whole Trump bad jokes probably stood out more because it was like a fucking sore thumb on a beautiful hand.
Right.
Um, no, I think the cute song or whatever was all right. It was all right.
Oh, the bit where like Dot has like the eyes and she's turning. Yeah. No. Okay. So that's actually something I wanted to bring up too. That's not necessarily just for the Animaniacs segments proper, although they do dip into it here and there with like the style switches and stuff. But like, yeah, as previously mentioned, they only for the main segments do Animaniacs and Pinky and the Brain, and they don't have any of the returning stuff from the original show, like Good Feathers or Slappy Squirrel or Chicken Boo or any of that. Well, Chicken Boo shows up, but it's part of another skit. But
well,
so
yeah, go ahead.
they do have segments in the show that are unrelated, that are just these sort of like standalone bits.
Okay, so I wanna talk about that for a second. So part of my problem with this show is the fact that it's almost exclusively Warner's and Pinky and the Brain shorts. I will say I am tired of hearing the Pinky and the Brain theme song. Like I don't want to hear it ever again. Just because in the old show, because they had so many variety of characters, and you never knew which one you were gonna get. Like, and each segment had its own theme song. You wouldn't have to listen to the same ones over and over again, so you weren't like necessarily going to get tired of it. But the fact that like the actual show opening show, I at least listen to because they change it at the end every time. So
Yeah.
at least that there's something different. But the Pinky and the Brain one is the same every single time, and you have to hear it every single episode. So it's like
At least they shortened it up.
it's a little shorter, yeah.
Yeah.
But it still just got on my nerves.
Right.
But for whatever reason, I think it's if I'm reading episode 8 and 9. Both of them, rather than have a second Warner segment, they replace it with two just like kind of random
They
new
don't seem like they would. If you showed me those segments without the context that they were in this show, I wouldn't have been able to tell you that they were segmented in Animaniacs.
Right. So there's one in episode 8, there's one called Starbox and Cindy, which is about like this tiny little alien who crash lands like this little girl's backyard, and she like basically treats him like a toy, and it's basically him trying to escape.
But it's one of those things where they record the audio of like a kid just sort of babbling about like
Right.
whatever the fuck, and then they sort of animate it around that, which I think is always good for a laugh.
Like I thought it was a cute segment. It just seemed really random because that was the first non-Warner's Peaking the Brain segment of the show, and it didn't start until halfway through the season.
Yeah, that
which
was
is what
definitely
threw me off.
Yeah, that definitely threw me for a loop too, because
and then
yeah.
they have another one the next episode of the gnome in people's mouth, which God, that segment
I would love to have seen what the pitch process for that one went like,
God,
and how it got
that
us
was
through.
a painful one to get through. It was I did not like that one at all. And then they don't do another. Then they immediately go back to Warner's and Peaking the Brain segments for the rest of the season. So it's like just these two random episodes get new segments, and then they go back to doing what they were doing. So it's just very strange. That it's just those two.
Yeah, I wonder if they maybe had plans to do more than that, but I think they maybe felt it was better to play it safe and just stick with the main segments. I don't know.
Well, honestly, I feel like because they were focusing exclusively on these two groups of characters, for me, I felt about halfway through the season like the show really started losing steam. Like I was having a good time for like the first 4 or 5 episodes. Like I thought there was a lot of really good stuff. But yeah, around like 6 or 7, and like I just felt like they were really struggling to put skits together. And like there's even a few skits, and I don't remember exactly which ones. The Warners themselves are like even mentioning like we have nothing to do. Like they like I think there was the episode with the hunter. They're literally trying to pull antagonist qualities out of a hat because they don't know what else to do.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it's like I've heard this said before about other mediums. If your character is commenting on how bad your thing is, that doesn't excuse it. That just highlights the fact that you couldn't think of anything.
Sure.
So that kind of sorry, go ahead, Kyle.
One thing I noticed is a lot of the antagonists in this series, and this is kind of another thing to get, I guess, political or PC or whatever the fuck you want to get into, but a lot of the antagonists in the show are straight white males, and they host a lot of toxic masculinity qualities. And I found that a little annoying in that sense because it really seems like they're trying to say something without trying to say something, in a sense.
Well, I kind of agree.
I don't know if you guys noticed that or
No,
not.
I kind of get what you're coming from. 'Cause especially you have I think his name is Nils. He shows up twice in this show. It's the giant bodybuilder.
The Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, the Schwarzenegger character. They even kind of Dot even kind of mentions it. Calls him like a horrible male stereotype. But yes, I definitely get it from that. I got it from the bunny rancher guy. He was very much like, okay, this is a guns right activist. So obviously, they're even like making very unsubtle comments about it.
Yeah, it's funny to say that it's a cartoony depiction in a cartoony show, but it's like that's how it is. It's just it's so flimsy of if you want to make an argument of something, it's so flimsy and weak.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And like I said, a lot of the points that they're making about this, about like making commentary on society, a lot of them I actually do agree with. But the way that they're depicting it is like way too on the nose. And like I don't necessarily remember if it was like that in the old show, but even if it is, then it would like that obviously didn't age well, and obviously it isn't going to age well here. I just think it's too obvious. It's not, none of the points they're trying to make about like satirizing. It's not subtle at all. It's just like very in your face. And in that sense, it is kind of annoying.
It's like having a political cartoon where the character's wearing a t-shirt and it says like toxic male. It's just like, I'm the toxic male. That's what it's like.
Yeah, it's like you might as well just slap a sign on each of these characters for what they're supposed to represent.
I did want to do a little aside that is specifically about that the bunny rancher guy.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I saw pictures of him outside of the context of what the show of what the skit was about, and I could have sworn that he was supposed to be like a parody of Stephen King.
I did too.
Yeah. No, he
very much looks like Stephen King.
Yeah. He's a parody on a real politician.
Oh, really?
Oh,
yeah.
Is that like related to gun control and stuff?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Here's the other thing that I don't think anybody has brought up or anything. So that whole anime sequence.
Yeah.
The guy who designed Skullgirls was the guy who was behind all the designs.
Oh, hey.
That's
Oh,
awesome.
that's cool. No, that segment was like great, and I loved it. But our friend Dustin brought up a really good point. They just kind of there's really no reason why it went into like
Oh, I know
specifically
the
an
reason.
anime.
I
Okay,
know the
well,
reason why completely, because it was so fucking weak. That cartoon was so fucking weak that they had to put an entire anime sequence, because people are going to be like, holy shit, that was so fucking cool. Like, that was the ultimate play it safe move right there, because without that, yeah, that whole cartoon was weak as fuck. Is that
And
not
okay.
right, or
and,
what?
and I'll, and I'll even say it worked because Twitter went ape shit over that scene.
That's the segment that everyone brought up that everyone's talking about. So yeah,
But
actually, I think you definitely nailed it. That's definitely the reason why they did it.
it
I mean, I'm
like
glad they did because it's a great looking segment. But yeah, it sort of just comes out of nowhere
well,
for no
and,
reason.
and it's even goes so far is it doesn't, like Kyle said, it is literally just it's filler because because this bunny rancher guy and they go into the anime sequence to fight him. They still lose at the end of that, so they're exactly back where they started before that sequence started.
Right.
Um,
I think the other thing too, just circling back to the topic of like how the antagonists are in the show. I had seen okay, and this is not specifically speaking to the points that Kyle was making because I don't know. It's been a long time since I've watched the original Animaniacs, but I feel like I felt like it was still pretty in line with how I remembered a lot of the antagonists being in the original show as well. But in a different point, a lot of people were bringing up how it seems that like a lot of the skits in this reboot, the Warners are the ones that are predominantly getting messed with
mhm.
instead of the other way around. And I don't know that that's necessarily a problem. Like it definitely does seem like it happens a bit more here than it ever did in the original show. Of course, and like I said, I it's been a while since I watched the original show, so I don't have a good reference point for it. But I feel like when you kind of take into account the influences behind Animaniacs and kind of just look at like the source material, like obviously like Looney Tunes and that type of shit, it kind of fits in line with like kind of how the story progression happened in those as well. Like I think a lot of the times like Bugs Bunny shorts, like he never messed with the antagonist until the antagonist antagonized hit him. You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
I feel like it's just still definitely falls in line, but it is definitely a change from what I remember of the original show. I could be wrong, but just going off of what I can kind of dredge up
Mhm.
from my child's mind, I guess.
Yeah, I definitely noticed. I didn't notice it. I saw that critique. I honestly wasn't too bothered by it. I thought there was a good blend of the Warners being bothered by people or the Warners bothering other people. Um, like and for as much as like the character really is pretty one note. I did enjoy the the skit where they go to the Olympic Games and have to fight against Nils because I feel like there's a lot of physical comedy
Yeah,
that was dug out of that, and I and I enjoyed all the commentators' explanation of sports.
yeah.
It's volleyball for tall people who can't dribble.
Uh, did you like how they kept on referencing how well known the Yakko song about the country is? They brought it up like I think like 3 or 4 times, like just making jokes about how like it's the most popular segment from the original show.
And I love that Wacko like he constantly is annoyed by its popularity.
Yeah,
And I like how and like as for as much as I didn't like the I think it's called Equal Time where they're where the Warners are presenting third party candidate ads. I did like that like Wacko's over at the big board and he wants to sing his song, but he gets too depressed through it.
right. No, as far as the political skits that happened in the show, I feel like that one was one of the better ones. I don't know why, but like Wacko getting replaced by like the drone at the end and stuff actually got some laughs. Like some of the stuff he was saying was kind of funny to me.
I feel like there are bits of that I like. I did feel like that one was another one where they didn't know what to do. Um, I think another one that is in kind of that same vein is the after show segment where they're like having like a press conference after the show.
Oh, and Yakko keeps on changing costumes.
I thought that was funny. They keep changing costumes, but I felt like that segment just kept dragging on and didn't have like any real conclusion to it. It just kind of ended.
Right.
So here's the question.
Yeah.
So the whole thing is they've been gone for a while. They came back. Whatever.
Yeah.
There's no explanation of where they were.
Yeah. Okay.
Like,
I brought this up with the friend I was watching it with. Like,
They're off the air.
Yeah, but they come back and their house is like fucking different and all that kind of stuff. Like, they haven't been living at home. They've just been like somewhere. They never explain where. And then they get captured inside their house, which I thought was weird. And then they get put back in their house.
Well,
I just thought that was
Kyle, if you take the theme song literally, they've been literally buried underground for 20 years.
That's literal.
Right. I was trying to remember what that specific part of the song was in the original theme song, and I couldn't remember anything else but a grave. Like, I don't know why.
I'm trying to, what part of the song is that?
That part of the song is where they introduce all the characters.
Oh, okay. So
because the first thing before it is talking about Pinky and the Brain, and then it talks about the grave thing.
Right.
So it cuts out that entire fucking part.
And see,
right. So I remember that, but I didn't remember exactly how long that part went on for. I guess just up until they kind of hit the verse again.
And that was also kind of weird about the new theme song is
literally reanimated over it.
Well, like, I thought it was like kind of clever that they're like, okay, we're literally gonna make the new one, but we're gonna make new segments for the theme song to like kind of update it. But the old show, a good portion of the theme song was them like talking about all the other characters, and like all the other kind of like skits you would get. But because Pinky and the Brain are the only other ones, they're like, okay, here's Pinky and the Brain. They want to rule the universe, and then they start talking about focus groups,
and
gender
neutral, equal rights and
pronouns and all that.
I thought I liked the new theme. I thought it was funny.
I think it's funny. I just thought it was weird that like, okay, here's Pinky the Brain, and then we're just gonna go back to talking about whatever.
That's because of the song. They introduce. It says meets Pinky and the Brain, and then it shows all the other characters where it's showing to meet them up. But that's where it ends over there, so that's why it's weird.
It is weird.
Back to the thing about the because I thought that was kind of confusing too in the very first episode about like, oh, they were gone for. I feel like it would have been a lot simpler just to have them locked up in the tower this whole time.
Yeah, but they're off the set or off the studio lot, and they're literally coming back in from it.
They're just walking up to the gate and to meet Ralph. Like,
it's weird. But that was another thing I really didn't like, and I don't know the reason behind it. I might though. They changed Ralph's colors to brown, and the colors are so fucking ugly on him because his skin is sort of brownish.
Right, yeah, because it used to be like blue, right? The uniform.
It's just like color-wise, he just blends in way too much. But I know that they probably did that because cops probably are getting a bad rap, so they didn't want to make him look like a cop.
Make him look more like a security, Yeah,
because from what I understand, the show's been edited multiple times before it aired, and that might have been a last-minute change with all this cop stuff going on.
So that was one other edit that I read that they made. I didn't get a chance to actually watch it before they edited it, but I saw screen caps where there was an episode during a Pinky and the Brain segment, I guess, where they had a fucking phone number on the screen, and if you called the number, it led to a sex hotline.
It did. I called it.
Oh my god. Yeah, and that's wild that they thought that they would just use like a regular number, because you think like they did this in an era of cartoons where they did that gag a lot for as far as like the call-in numbers for like products and stuff, but they would always go use a 555 number because that never actually leads anywhere.
You look at it, it looks like a very generic phone number. I think anyone on the staff would have thought about like, oh, we need to call this number to make sure it's not a thing. It looks it looks generic enough. It's just happened to be. Sorry,
it seems like a board joke that just never got corrected.
Yeah.
probably wrote
That's
that
wild
number
that
down.
no one thought to fucking call it though. That's like it had to go through so many people, and not one of them thought to call it. That's insane.
So they said that they edited that part out. They said that they
Yeah.
edited out, I guess Scratch and Sniff was sick, and they made him more polka dot cartoonish sick instead of coronavirus sick. So that was
Oh,
another thing that they had edited out. So I'm thinking Ralph got edited last minute too.
Maybe.
well, I don't know. I feel like that one might be not as I don't know because if you the colors of the Warners have slightly changed too, like not as drastically, but like they definitely changed there, and it's a hard comparison point because
But they're the
well,
same colors.
well, no, I mean, yeah, but they're not exactly like pure white. They're like kind of more cream colored.
Okay, yeah. So I noticed that too, and I feel like it kind of got changed over time. Like in the first couple episodes, it is really obvious that their gloves are stark white, but their like face fur is like kind of a cream color.
Yeah,
But I feel like like the face color got more white as the season went on.
I don't know that I
people-
necessarily noticed that, but
People were saying that since they're cartoons, whatever, that was their way of showing age in a sense. But
I could believe that.
That's coming from headcanons, which isn't official.
Right.
What was the other thing? There was one more. Oh, because I was going to say because they don't show any of the old segments, but there is a bit in the show where there's a cameo from all those old characters, and I wouldn't know without like actually comparing them side by side. But I feel like maybe the colors there aren't all exactly the same too. I feel like it just works within the palette they're working within.
Yeah. It only really bothered me in those first couple of segments where like the face color and the glove color were like right up next to each other and they weren't the same shade of white. So that kind of bothered me, but like I got used to it after a while.
Sure.
So here's the thing. So since I heard they were saying that they want to bring back all the old characters from the old show and stuff, you think something like the Good Feathers still works in this age? Like rip off of I wouldn't say a blatant rip off, but more of a parody on a movie.
Yeah, I don't know.
Gives a shit about now. You think having Joe Pesci Bird is really gonna like hit home with kids and stuff?
Probably not.
Or is it to the point now that it's like Fred Flintstone, where nobody knows that he's
The honeymooners.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of in that camp, honestly.
Well, I don't know. I feel like, yeah, maybe not specifically Goodfellas, but I feel like mob movies have never went out of style. So,
Right.
I feel like if they did a Goodfeathers segment now, it would probably be like a take on like what was the most recent Scorsese movie on Netflix, something like that.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. I feel like, yeah, or like they could do like any other numbers shit that's come out since then. But, and that's another thing too. You said for a kid's show, but I mean, we know that this is definitely skewing more towards adults who are probably still more familiar with that type of thing anyway. So
I don't know if I really got through this explanation earlier. I do think that you can still watch this with your young kids and they're not going to be offensive or offended. There's not going to really be anything in there that would offend, I'm going to say, most normal people. They do say hell a few times, but it's literally just to refer to like physical, like saying what the hell.
That was a bit that got a good laugh out of me, was because in the first short that we see Nils in, he gets weighed down by gold medals and then crashes through the earth into hell. And then later on, when they meet Nils again near the end of the season, you just hear Wacko go, I thought you were in hell. Like, I don't know why that tickled me so much.
I got a good laugh out of me too.
Yeah.
But
yeah, so there's nothing in here that would, it's still very much a family show in a sense.
Yeah, basically what I was going to say is that the way I watched this as a kid is I watched it because it was funny cartoon characters doing funny, stupid shit. That's what I got out of it. My dad, who watched it with me, got all the like satire and the political humor out of it, and that's what he thought was funny. So now I'm in my dad's position where I am more understanding of all the political satire, the commentary on society. I get that stuff now, and some of it I do think is funny. But I think if I like took my nephew and put him down in front of this. He'd probably just like it because, you know, it's wacky cartoon characters hitting each other in the head with hammers and stuff. So I definitely think in that respect, that part of it does kind of carry the spirit of the old show, that you can watch this at two different stages of your life and enjoy it, but for different reasons.
Sure. That's a good summation.
Yeah.
I did want to just circle back to the topic of favorite sketches because I felt like one was worth mentioning that I really enjoyed.
Yeah.
And I mentioned this to you off recording, but there's a segment in here where it's just like, and I feel like for a lot of these episodes, the stronger segments are the ones that they end the episode on, and the ones that don't run as long as the other ones, but no more so than the one with the it's like security footage, and it's just sort of following Ralph's sort of the entry gate, and it's like completely silent except for like the hum of the camera rolling, and it's like this time rolled footage of like the Warners sort of messing with them, but then like also like a vampire shows up, and it's just like it's fucking just like silent footage of them trying to like lure a vampire and like stake it in the heart, and like I don't know, I feel like it's one of those things where like they have to rely. Well, and back to that point of you making about the physical gags and stuff, this is a short that has entirely no sound, and so they have to write exclusively on visual gags, and I felt like it was a really strong segment just based on that fact. Like it's hilarious.
Yeah, I definitely think that this show succeeds at keeping the spirit of the physical comedy. Like, I do think there's a lot of good sight gags, a lot of good like squash and stretch and stuff. So there, like, a lot of that is really good. I think most of my problems are with like the writing and the scenarios.
And that could just be even easily enough as like the writers getting their hands dirty and getting familiar with like how to work with the characters and stuff. I feel like because they are already confirmed to have a season 2, I believe that's coming out next year. I wonder, if they'll kind of have their characterizations and stuff also like ironed out. Like, you know, if they'll obviously they won't be able to take any criticisms to heart for this since they've already been producing this one. But it's, hard to say. Who knows? You know, it could jive. It could jive better. Well, it could be more. People could potentially be more receptive to it than they are with this one, with the problems that they did have.
Yeah. But in terms of like what I would actually consider my favorites of this, like I said, I did enjoy the one where they go to the Olympics and fight Nils, because I think there's a lot of like physical comedy of like them messing with him the entire episode. I feel like there's a lot of good stuff in that. I did enjoy the one where the Warners are Greek gods messing with Odysseus the entire time.
Right. Yeah.
I think the other one I really liked. I thought the one about the French Revolution was kind of funny.
Oh, the one with the Marie Antoinette, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that one was pretty good.
Yeah.
And I think, Matt, and I think you and I were talking about this before we started recording. For as much shit as I give this show, especially in the latter half where I just feel like it really started to drag, they end on something that I did not expect that was going to like hit me as hard as it did. The very last segment,
Kyle, because you didn't watch the last episode, right? Because you said you dipped out right after the man spreader thing.
I didn't even watch that part. I just was like, "Yep, I'm done."
Oh, okay. So that means that you only missed like the very last episode. So
but yeah. So at the end of the, sorry, go ahead, Matt.
No, I was gonna say So the last segment of the last episode, it's kind of dedicated to this, and it's something that was fun to see a return because they didn't really do that much of it this season. But there was, they did historical stuff like all season, but this was like another thing in the same style as like the Yakko song about their countries. But like this was Dot trying to do a song about all the first ladies of the presidents. And they go through a whole thing where like she's only got like 2 minutes to do it, and she's like struggling to like fit everything in. And I think they get under the impression that like they get underneath like 2 minutes and they get everyone in, but then like they end the episode and they end the whole season on like a fucking a little tribute card like in black and white to the one lady
to someone.
Yeah, and it plays like sad music. And it's like, yeah, it's a really good gag.
And I like it took me a second to get the gag because it's like it's one of the older first ladies. Like, so of course she's dead. But then I thought about it for a second. I'm like, oh, she's the one first lady they didn't get to in the song. And for whatever reason, that just hit me. It was so fucking hard. And I just was rolling laughing watching it.
Well, and the
After
reason why I laughed at that too is because they do that same gag of like the sort of tribute card, like the RIP, with the episode where Dot gets a zit. And like they're like the whole song revolving around like, oh, we're gonna be the best of friends, blah blah blah, and then it ends on the card where it's like, Dot's zit, like 2020 to 2020, like
it lives 24
so,
hours.
yeah, 24 hours. And so like as a callback gag to that, I thought it was pretty funny.
And I also want to give them credit for about that zit segment. Going into it, I thought it was gonna be a lot more disgusting than it was.
There's no way any show can do an episode about a zit grosser than Invader Zim ever did.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They fucking have the crown on that.
They keep that crown. I don't want to see anything worse. That was disgusting.
Speaking of Zim, though, there was a bit in a Pinky and the Brain segment that really felt like a fucking Zim episode to me. There's the episode where they speaking of first ladies, they get the I forget her name, but they get the lady mouse and they give her the brain synapses and like they turn into like the running mate for the brain. And there's a bit where Brain does like some mind to her, and like that whole segment, that whole last debate that she has with the other congresswoman or whatever, plays out like a fucking Zim segment where like just the stuff that like that the mouse is saying and like is reacting, and the visual gags and like how the audience is like, I just any Zim fans that are out there, if you're not gonna watch Animaniacs, just try to look for this segment because I swear to God, it plays out exactly like something out of Zim. It's hilarious, and that I think is a standalone segment in an episode. I think that was like one of my favorites. It was just so fucking bizarre to see like in the context of Pinky and the Brain.
And I'm gonna put money on now that character is gonna reappear in the second season.
Yeah, so that was something for Pinky and the Brain that was definitely interesting, is that they set up potentially a recurring antagonist in the next season, and then also I don't rightly remember if in the original show they ever touched on it, but they show the fucking origins of Pinky and the Brain. Like as far as like before they achieved before Brain achieved higher cognition, I guess. But just sort of their origins before they met, I guess. I can't remember if they ever showed that in the original show.
I don't remember. So I feel we've talked a lot about the Warners, but like honestly, I felt like the Pinky and the Brain segments were kind of the weakest segments. But I just want to say that my biggest takeaway from the Pinky and the Brain segments is I love anytime that Egwin showed up.
Oh,
yeah, the little fat mouse friend. Because anytime he would show up, Brain would like go and like, and from this day forth, this shall be known as Pinky, Egwin, and the Brain. And then Egwin gets taken off to be eaten.
Did he show up more than twice? Because I only recalled there's the bit where like the episode ends and they're like in the high school and they're on the fucking plates.
I think he shows up 3 times. He shows up the first time when Pinky and Brain are off to fight the dragon.
Okay, that was the part that I missed, because I did remember, because the bit with the where they're in the gondola and stuff, that would happen the episode right after the one
where they're in Arabia,
yeah. So I did remember that. Okay, so I missed the first one.
It was just such a quick thing, and I love how like Brain had never acknowledged that he'd been taken away before, but he's all just so adamant. It's like, oh no, this is the new status quo.
Right.
We're taken away.
I'm sure that'll still be a recurring gag next season.
I hope so. I actually thought it was really funny.
Right.
Same joke every time, but like I don't like reoccurring jokes that are driven into the ground, but the fact that he's just so adamant about like Egwin is going to be a part of the show now every single time.
Right.
I don't know. It gets me in a good way.
That's fun.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what else I really have to say about this, and just like, I think on the whole, I enjoyed this. I know when Melanie and I were watching this, we could only watch a few episodes at a time because it kind of got a little exhausting to watch. But again, I don't know if this old show is the same way if I went back and rewatched it. But I think on the whole, like, I think this is a well put together show. I think between the three of us, we know a good handful of people who worked on this show. And like, because everyone's been posting, like, here's the storyboard that I did, or this bit of animation was done by me. So that's been kind of cool to see, and obviously a lot of hard work put into this. I would be interested to see what the second season holds, and if maybe they learn some things from this first season and maybe like tighten some stuff up.
Yeah.
It was just very hit or miss for me. But I'm not against the idea as a whole, and I would like to see what else they can do with this.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what season 2 will be like. Yeah, for me it was definitely more hits than misses, but I mean, yeah, there are definitely misses. But I mean, not every show is perfect. All the jokes, especially for comedy shows that rely solely like on those types of jokes. I mean, they can't all be zingers, Like they just got to throw it out there, and if people laugh, they laugh. If they don't, they don't, and then they just move on to the next joke.
Yeah. Kyle, you've been quiet over there. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
Nah, fuck it.
Well said.
All right, guys. Well, that is our thoughts on the new Animaniacs reboot. Please let us know what you thought about it. Like, if we're completely off base with how we feel about this. It's the internet. No one has any qualms about telling us that we're wrong. If you would like to yell at us, feel free to follow our Facebook, our Twitter, join our Discord, head over to our YouTube page. You can find all the links to those in the show notes. Join the community and whatnot. And we are on pretty much every streaming platform out there. So if you want to take us on the go, they are. Thank you all for listening. Hope everyone else staying safe out there, and we will be back again next week. And I guess we'll just see you then.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Ink and Paint Club podcast. Be sure to follow us on Facebook and Twitter to keep up with the show. Join our Discord to chat with us. Links are in the description. We'll see you next time.